Hey everybody, welcome finally to this preview of Italy in Wargaming Dragon. All the Italian units I will go through. Keep in mind this is a preview version. In theory, all the things here can change. In practice, possibly nothing. At best, some names, I would say, but you never know, right? Now, if everything goes planned, then in today's dev blog released by Eugen, you should be told when this DLC releases. And yeah, so let's go through the units. I will hopefully divide this in chapters, so if you're only interested in tanks or infantry, you can skip ahead to that. We'll first go through it in the armory, and then I'll briefly go into deck building to see like availability, etc., etc. This is a standalone nation. This will not come with the coalition, and trust me, it's better that way. Another thing, I will not go through the non-Italy changes. There will be a lot of balance changes as well coming with this. I think you will get the patch log when the DLC actually releases. However, by looking closely at some units here and there, you might see some changes or some stats that you can expect to also affect non-Italian units. Obviously not talking about the stats of an Ariete, but there are some units or some weaponry that is shared with existing nations. Now, let's get into it, shall we? Obviously, logistics, not the most interesting part. And really, it has nothing fancy about this. You get a logistics helicopter, you get a Jeep. AR-76, that's the same thing as the... Well, it has the same stats, I should say, as the Yugoslavian one, which means very, very good off-road speed. I'm a certified Jeep CV hater, but this is like one of the few Jeep CVs where I'm like, yeah, I'd take that more often than not. But of course, still a 5 HP, no armor, no weaponry. A Fiat CV, you'll see a lot of Fiats here. It's pretty basic, right? The Infantry CV, Gruppo di Controllo, that's they get an SMG, and then MG42, which is an MG3 stat clone. Pretty basic. Transports, APCs, and basic helicopters. We'll go over those in the infantry tab as well, more detailed. I think that's more interesting in that tab. M577, which we all know and love, an LVTP or LVTC. I guess C stands for command, whereas P maybe like personnel, like personal carrier. I don't know. Leopard 1 CV, and yeah, that's basically it. Really nothing out of the ordinary. I think the most special thing about Logistics app is really the very, very fast Jeep CV. 20 and 30 point supply truck, Chinook, supply helo, and a fob. Now, look closely at the fob, at the stats. Maybe you notice something. Infantry tab. Now, let's get spicy. Let's start with the Alpini. 20 points, 15 men, light infantry. They carry, just as some others, the BM59, which is, I think, like an upgraded M14 or something. It is also used by South Korean reservists. M14, that is. Now, you might look at the stats and be like, holy smokes, 80% accuracy on truck infantry? Yes, but they're essentially battle rifle on steroids, in the sense that just like battle rifles are a lot more accurate with lower rate of fire and lower stabilizer than assault rifles, the BM59 goes even further into that. Even more accuracy than a battle rifle. No, that's not a battle rifle. Is it? Oh, it is a battle rifle. Even more accuracy than a battle rifle. But even worse rate of fire, right? All rate of fire on this. I don't know why it's a 20% stabilizer. I'm not sure if that's intended. But it's really not a big deal either way. Really low rate of fire. Really good accuracy. It's kind of a tie-up. The problem with this on shocks is you get to the accuracy cap really, really quickly, right? Which is why battle rifles on elites are not particularly good. Already like 400 meters or something, you get to the accuracy cap, which means that you don't get any, at least while you're calm, don't get any DPS bonus for getting closer. Which is why battle rifles are great on shocks, because you don't really reach the cap in forest battles. And SMGs and such really start to shine on special forces. Yeah, they get the MG3, which you will see on almost any infantry squad here, and the M18. M18 is a really, really low AP recoilless rifle. 1000 meters range, which is pretty good, of course, but only 9 AP. You can't even double tap 2 armored transports, but to sort of make up for it, you obviously get the range and 12 RPM. CQC on the MG, of course. They're available in Moto, Airborne Support, and Mech, and get the M113 and the Chinook as transports. So not a great variety of transports. Now Alpini 90 take that to another level. They get the RC, AR7, they get an assault rifle, still the MG42, and the Folgore. The Folgore is a crazy good recoilless rifle. 1400 meters range, 18 AP. That's essentially a Carl Gustav with double the range. 7 RPM only, of course, but it's really, really good. You pay 30 points for that, though. Still 15 men, and being light infantry, of course, they get the elite speed. Same transports. So. Special Forces, Col Mosken. I think the only one of 2 infantry squads that get a different FG. They get the Mini-Me, Assault Rifle, and the Panzerfaust 3. They're alright, right? Pretty solid, nothing crazy. Transport-wise, you get the Fiat, various Huey variants. This one is 220 kmh, these two are 260, and the Chinook. Let's get to some fist squads. You get the M18 fist squad, which has still 12 RPM, still 9 AP, all the same stats, but 1.5 AG. Not 2, because of the small caliber, you only get 1.5. But of course, compared to other recoilless rifle squads, you get the 12 RPM. Transport-wise, Fiat M5 basic M113. Now we get the Camelinos, which is basically the upgraded M113. The VCC1, sorry, the basic one and the Mark III. Basic one is 2 armor, 2 front, 2 side, and is amphibious. The Mark III is 3 front, 3 side, and not amphibious. They're all 65 kmh, they all get the Browning. Yeah. And the same basic helicopters. The Folgore, CSR Folgore, is an airborne shock variant of the recoilless of fist squads, I should say. And get the Folgore instead. Same set as on the Alpini, but 2HE, like fist squads tend to get. They're shocked, so they're faster and get better primary weapon stats. Yeah. They're available in airborne and motorized and support. Now let's get to line infantry. Fanteria di Linea. They get Super Bazooka and a BM59, which is again like the battle rifle taken to an extreme. MG42 or MG3, whatever you want to call it, but it's the same stats. Super Bazooka, really bad anti-tank weaponry, although it does have very good suppression, because the suppression is basically purely based on the caliber of weaponry, which is pretty funny. And they get Fiat, M113, and the Camelinos. Obviously, that makes these guys really good for spamming. Good meat shields. And they can decently grind against infantry. Just vehicles, they're just gonna suffer. Fanteria di Linea 90, however, have the Apilas. They have an assault rifle, MG3, and Apilas for 15 points, which is, of course, very, very, very good. They're gonna be a bit spicy, but it is what it is. Same transports. Moto, airborne, support, mech, armored. Almost any spec. They're probably gonna replace Fusilier 90s in a lot of mixed blue decks. If not all of them. Guastatori, they're your flamer squads, nothing special here. Same transports. Lagunari, they are line marine infantry. They're 15 men. Which is why, despite having the Super Bazooka, they cost 15 points. And instead of the Fiat, they get the LVTP. Other than that, they have the same loadout as Fanteria di Linea, just more ammo, really. Maro, they're your marine shock squads. 15-point ones. Basically blue for Modschützen. In a sense. Really good against infantry for the price, of course, because they're shock. They get the MG3, they get an assault rifle. But they get a Blindesal, which is not a great anti-tank weapon, of course. And the same LVTP, Camelinos, and M113 as before. That's gonna be for a lot of infantry. The infantry squad itself is only available in Marines. 90s variant is basically the same, but you get the Apilas. Milan and Milan 2, they get the SMG and a variety of basic transports. Right? We have seen all the transports as far, or almost all of the transports. As you might already know, there's no I-freeze, which Eugen has already told us in the dev blocks. Paracadutisti, they're your airborne squads. They're available in Moto and Airborne. Very, very similar loadout. They don't get an assault rifle, but instead this BM59 again. Also 15 points. But compared to the Maro, you get them in the Fiat, for example, you get them in helicopters. 90s variant, also very, very similar. They get the Aquilas and assault rifle, same transports. There's a running theme here, but Italy just basically only used MG42s and had hundreds of Aquilas and bazookas beforehand. It's just very, very few different anti-tank weapons. Reservists, very basic. They only get the M113. And your basic Stinger A with a very cool unit picture, if I may say so myself. And a very same basic transports. Now, the infantry itself is very strong, but obviously no IFVs and no helicopters with more than an MG3, right? And even those, or I guess you get the minigun on the Chinook. So yeah, subpar transports with the exception of very good 5-pointers. However, on one of the key squads, the LPD 90, you only get in one armor transport, right? So there's, for not every aspect, for a lot of aspects, there is a balancing factor tied to many of those units. And Maro and Paracadutisti, obviously very strong against infantry, but they really suffer against vehicles. And in general, the theme, of course, not having IFVs means for a lot of situations you need to bring a second extra unit with it, right? There's no BVP combo that you can bring with your two squads, right? So you get 2 squads, 2 BVPs, and that will deal with enemy 5-pointers or transports, etc. Or in forest protect against helicopters even. No, you always need to bring, almost always need to bring an extra unit. Unless you specifically just want a town grind or something like that. Support. You get a Fear of 25, which is your basic napalm MRS. I should also quickly show the armory tool so we can take a look at some of the real-time stats and such, right? So the Fear 25, for example, it fires only 20 rounds in a salvo. However, that means that it reloads the salvo very, very fast as well. The Feroz 30 now is an HE MLRS, very, very similar to the Lars or the RM70 actually. Take a look at the RM70. And look at the firepower tab. You can see pretty much the same stats, right? So it's essentially, really, a RM70, but it has a lot of range. It has a lot of range, which also means it has a very, very high minimum range, which can be good or bad depending on the map and situation. But it can also be very, very, very annoying. And that's a very good aim time as well of 15 seconds. M270 MLRS HE variant, we've known that. Hawk and Hawk 2. The Hawk 2 thus far only in the form of the Hawk PIP 2 for South Korea. Japan as well, I think. No, only South Korea has a PIP 2. No, there's gotta be more, right? 2? Oh, yeah. There's a Shenaf 2, there's a Dutch one. There's a few of them. 3 HE motor, 4 HE motor, and this big 5 HE motor with the special French thing. I think it has the same stats. Either way, it has let's just compare to a normal 5 HE motor to illustrate the differences. Because it actually is very formidable when it comes to supporting your infantry or anything really. Essentially being fire support, right? So we have same salvo length, same shot reload, but faster aim time, same range, faster reload time in between salvos, And well, the accuracy you see, sorry, the dispersion is also lower, right? You pay for it, of course, but offensively, it's very strong motor. So was the VPM 20, the French one, but of course, the big difference is, or the Nonas for Soviets, but the big advantage is the Porta Mortaio actually carries a good amount of ammo, which the French one also does actually, but it also costs 60 points. Huh. No, but the the Nonas, right? They suffer from not having a lot of ammo. We have this thing here, which is a quad Browning. One of those units that is you're never gonna really actually put it to your deck because you don't have the activation points. However, there's one niche scenario where they actually are really good for their price, and that's just having him spread over forests and just stunning helicopters. Because there in those situations they will never be outranged because the maximum range shooting into a forest and out of a forest is very low, right? And just having so many around, it will stun helicopters actually really fast. So those are one of those few situations where they can actually shine, but that's just not something that you can really prepare for. Let's say that. CM25 is a very solid spec. It's a cheap spec with a very good rate of fire, very good salvo length, affordable, decent autonomy, range, non-radar, just a good all-round non-radar spec. Automatic. It does have extra armor compared to the Danish one, which means it's gonna survive more. uh, every single plane-based seed missile will still one-shot this. That's, I think, very, very important to keep in mind. IFVs, however, are gonna have a much, much bigger issue. Milan ones, for example, will not be able to one-shot them anymore. You will now need 20 AP heat to one-shot, as opposed to 17. Carl Gustavs will also not one-shot, not the basic variant at least. So that is something you have to keep in mind. But if you're eagle-eyed, you will notice something about this. Basic, a basic 50 point M109, we know those, we know the 100 point ones. M107 we've seen before, M110A2 we've seen before. Spada Aspite, which is basically in between an OSA AK and an OSA AKM. It has the same range and HE as a NASAMS as well, but is of course guided. When Eugen in their blog post mentioned it's essentially a less accurate NASAMS, they forgot to mention that it's also not fire and forget, which is a very, very big deal. What is also a big deal is it's one of the few medium range, let's call them SAMs, that Blue Forget gets with a 7 HE, which means that on crit it can one-shot planes. Yeah, it's solid, right? It has the range of an AKM, but the accuracy of an AK, OSA AK that is, an OSA AKM, and it's price-wise right in between. Thanks. Leopard 192, pretty basic. The big top dog for Italy, the Ariete. Yeah, modern ammo, but it lacks an armor, right? It is basically an SCRV 1-1. It has only 6 side armor, which is even less than a Leclerc. Decent speed and autonomy, 2 MGs, respectable accuracy and stabilizer, but can't keep up with like the actual super heavies, right? M47, same thing that you has. It's a decent, like, cheap fire support tank. M60A1, I'll be honest, I don't think anybody really cares about you. M60A1 ERA, 12 armor, 16 AP, 10 RPM, but relatively slow, so it doesn't have optics. OF40, their own tanks that are definitely not Leopard ones. The basic one doesn't even have a stabilizer. They all have 10 RPM though, the 1 of 5mm variants at least. Mark II now comes with a stabilizer. Mark IIA gets medium optics. They also, of course, get more modern ammo, better ammo. This one is, quite glass tanky. And then the Mark III gets a bigger turret with a 120mm gun and does also better armor. 13 armor, 19 apiece, of course, some nice thresholds, 2 MGs as well. It's just a very solid medium tank, but also only 5 side armor, so you gotta keep that in mind. Pretty model though. Recon. We have very good optics with 6 HP and good speed. A variant that also carries 250 cals and a few rockets. It's honestly a pretty neat helicopter. More very good optics. Exceptional optics. Jeep that even says Carabinieri on the side. Jeep with 50 cal. Okay, I don't think anybody really cares too much about those. Shock squads, the Bersaglieri. MG3 and BM59 would have guessed. Italy had very few M72 laws, so that's the squad that gets them to at least give some variety. They also get the ACM-80, of course, and the last, I think, transport that we've not seen yet, that's the VM90P Protetto. That is their Recon transport wheeled. Good optics, minimum stealth, as those transports tend to be. The other side of special squads, the spicy ones, come Subin. 5 men, but they carry the Folgore. So in a sense, they're a bit like Maglan, but actually balanced, right? Maglan, of course, with the spike, ATGM, but the Folgore, of course, still gives your Recon squad, which can spot for itself. It's very stealthy and fast and elite and all that. Gives us, when sneaking around, of course, a lot of range for sniping CVs, sniping stuff. But they're also only 5 men. And they don't have the range or AP that the Maglan has, right? So they're generally a lot more manageable. Your regular Recon squads, Esploratori. Then we have 3 Fiat variants. The first one is basically like the Lux H1, 2 front armor, late RH202, wheeled, amphibious. It's neat. 90mm variant, which has the same gun as, let's say, the V150 90mm that the US has in the vehicle tab. This thing here. Right, it's actually not too bad. 60mm variant with the HVMS gun. That is the same thing that Israel has as well on the M113 in the Recon tab. And here's the neat part. AG, right? It's pretty good. It has F29 RPM. It's very, very good. It does cost 50 points for only 2 armor though. And unlike some other units, it doesn't have the range like an AMX-10, right? It selects range. It has no stabilizer. It's strong, but for the price, pretty glass cannony. Level 1 Recon, just a solid Recon tank, honestly, cheap Recon tank, but good enough range, accuracy, armor. It's neat. Centauro Rico, non-prototyped, 16 AP, very fast, 3 armor, full range stabilizer. It is quite strong. There's no denying that. It is very, very good. And then last but not least, you have the Para Cecchini, your sniper squad. Yeah, that's really all there's about that. I just realized I forgot to mention, or like point it out, but of course you can take a look at it yourself when I look at the unit. Some of these units are prototyped, right? Like the 60mm variant, for example, here is prototyped, and like I said, the Centauro is not. Komsubin are not prototyped either. Although, for when it comes to them, I'm a lot less worried, honestly, because while they are great, I don't think they're nearly as impactful as Maglan, so I don't see them really being an issue for Mixed Blue. Vehicle tab. Let's turn off the transports. We have a Rico's Rifle Jeep. It's on the AR-59, so not on a very, very speedy Jeep. We have the R-76 Ito, which is on a very speedy Jeep, so which honestly makes this a decent unit in my eyes. Jeeps, of course, are incredibly squishy, but having the 120 km/h off-road speed means that more often than not you can actually fire the Ito and immediately reverse into safety before a tank or something else catches up with you. That's very, very neat. C1360, which is again the HVMS gun with AG in the vehicle type, 2 armored front to side. It's decently fast, even amphibious. It's neat. It's okay. It's solid. Non-Recon Centauro, same stats without the optics and stealth. Non-prototyped, available in mech as well. The Recon variant was not in mech, by the way. Now we have those mini MRS systems. Now, originally, they were stat-wise like the Bov Rakatash with like 1400 meters range. Fortunately, we got Eugen to change that, and now there's a really long range direct fire rocket pods, essentially based on ground. They're a lot of fun. They're good. They're not oppressive. I like them a lot. I think they're very flavorful. I think they're very fancy. I think they're very nice to have. I think they're unique. I love this unit. And then there's one of the Fiat, which has more armor and 10 HP, right? So it's honestly a toss up about which one is better. Of course, this one is 5 points cheaper, but 30 versus 35 is not really that big of a deal. But this one, of course, is amphibious, and especially the HP means that like a single mortar round or something will not immediately kill you. Then you have like some M113 and last year VCC variants with the tow line, right? These ones have single tubes, so they have to reload after every missile. And this one has double tubes, so 10 seconds for every 2 missiles it is. Also 2 front to side, which is good to have. Helicopters. Have this thing here, which I think is basically a copy of no, it's actually AOE, right? It's similar to one of the Commonwealth helicopters, but you get HE rockets. A109AT, which is honestly a pretty decent helicopter. Fast, cheap, and ITOs are nice to have. Like when all you need something is for IFVs, maybe get like a bit of damage on tanks. I think people underestimate these helicopters. It's very neat. And 6 HP means like Stingers, for example, or Igdas will not one-shot you. And you have the Mangusta, which is the A129 anti-tank variant, TOW2s and FFARs. 8 HP, 1 front, 1 side armor, no stealth, medium optics, fast. It's solid. I think you get what you see, right? There's nothing special about this. And we got the CPT, which is the AA variant. You get the gun, and other than that, it's actually incredibly similar to the Zephyr, but you basically get extra HP, and you get medium optics and the armor, which honestly is very much worth paying for. The 10 points in my eyes. The optics especially. So it's honestly just very good anti-helicopter and all around like support helicopter. Last but not least, the planes. Got a Harrier. 230 AP missiles. They are semi-active. You have no gun either. And some M9s. It's okay. And we have the F104s, and one important thing here. Speed. F104s are 1000 kmh now. I think that's very important to keep in mind. This F104G, it's basically a G bomber. 4 15 G bombers, which is pretty good, but of course you only have 10% ECM. Then we go to the ASF variants. The F104S with AIM-7F and AIM-9B is literally hit and miss. It's not so great. When you have cheap spam cheap spam ASFs, you really want the guns, right? Because when you use so many, some of those are just gonna stick, right? And actually gonna go deep into the enemy AA or in a head-on fight against like a Eurofighter or something, and then the guns really matter. So not having guns hurts those cheap ASFs a lot. You have the ASA1 or the ASA1 or the ASA1, whatever you want to call it. Still no gun, and it's gonna stay that way. 30% ECM though, and some much better missiles. The Aspide 1A, still semi-active, but yeah, solid missiles. I think again it speaks for itself. Again, very briefly, after this we'll quickly go and build a deck so you can see availability. And the ASA 2 gets the E-Drive, which is like an upgraded variant, which is fire and forget. 50% accuracy though, as well as AIM-9L. So, well, it's basically a fire and forget upgrade, right? And you get better air detection. We get the G91, which is an napalm plane. Slow, no ECM. Well, not slow, but not particularly fast. Different variant with some medium AP semi-active missiles. It's yeah, not that great. And we get this rocket pod plane. Two types of rocket pods, both HE. Not that fast, no ECM. And we get a Ghibli, which for all intents and purposes is like a Cheetah D2 that South Africa has, right? Fast, decent ECM, 215 HE, laser guided bombs, Vulcan, aim 9s. It's very, very solid. Not much to say here. Then we get the Tornado line. The A200 has 5 cluster bombs, 30% ECM, which I think is the lowest that any Tornado has. I mean, some of the UK ones does do as well, but there's no Tornado with a 20 or 10% ECM. It's a relatively modern plane, I assume. EA200B, which is the seat variant, which is essentially the ECR for cheaper, but you don't get aim 9s. And then the ADV ASF variant, which is basically a Tornado F3 with the ECM of the Tornado F2, I think. Right, yeah, you get the same loadout, but 10% less ECM. And those are the units, right? Let's quickly take a look at the some of the availability here, right? Oh yeah, I forgot to check. 15% availability bonus, which means that 4 per card CVs will be 5 per card, but 3 per card CVs will stay 3 per card. Not just CVs, but any unit that is 3 and 4 per card respectively, right? So for example, the Mark III, the better 5-pointer will give a slight availability penalty, at least when it comes to certain base availability. Once you get into lower availability base, like Infanteria di Linea 90, they don't anymore. That's due to the way these are programmed or set up in the game. I think Infantry, there's nothing really too special about the availability here. You will get... Where is it? Blind. 5 downloaded automatics. It's 4-3 the availability, just like the Danish one. This is 6-4 base, right? But yeah, nothing too fancy here. You get 5 downloaded of these bad boys. Tanks, you get 2 cards of the Ariete. Oh yeah, you get only 1 card of the automatic, of course, right? 2 cards of the Ariete. 1 card of the O40s. Yeah, Ariete is 3-2. O40 is 8-6 face, 9-7 in Italy. Well, you only get it in Italy. Recon variant, or Recons, these are of course 4-3 base. This is all standardized, of course, when it comes to Recon Infantry. You get 6-4 Centauro, 7-5 in Italy. I think these are 10-7 base. The Fiat 60. 14-10 base Centauro. That's important to know for blue mixed, of course. This thing is prototyped anyway. 4 and 3 upgraded CBTs, which is pretty good. But I think for most of these units, availability is, you can guess it, right? But very important, it's really for the planes, because the veterancy is very important. So 3 dominated Harriers and 2 upgraded ones, which is really nice. It's a prototype, by the way. It's very, very similar to the American one, of course. But the American one gets the equalizer gun. It might also get better aim 9s. I don't fully remember. 3 F-104Gs, bunch of these F-104Ss, but they're not that great. 3 veteran ASA-1s, 2 elite ASA-2s. But I'll be honest, they've not felt... do not expect those to be the next MiG-29, the next Finnish MiG-29. It's not gonna be on the same level, trust me. 5 of these, well, 4 based on these, just like these guys. And that's 3-2. This is 2 upwetted, like the Cheetah. 2 downwetted cluster planes, 1 seed, and 3-2 on the Tornado. As I think most people would expect. So, that was a quick rundown of the units of Italy. If everything goes to plan, I will also stream tonight. Yeah, let me know what you think. Patch notes for the non-Italy units will be revealed on the day this releases. And yeah, hopefully I will see you in the next one and in today's stream. Bye bye.